I need to feel your energy today from start to finish.
Come on, let's go.
Let's crank this thing up. It get real ferocious, I'm trying to tell you.
Turn me up all day.
From the locker room to the broadcast booth, breaking news and the truth behind every take from a real NFL insider and television analyst.
Now get ready for the NFL show where the conversation gets real and the fans get a voice. It's time for the Lake Lewis Jr. Show here on ESPN Radio.
And that's football.
Welcome, everyone, to the Lake Lewis Jr. Show. Appreciate you joining me as always, and I missed you. I wasn't here last week because I was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Had a great time up there covering the NFL draft and lots of shockers, lots of surprise moves, and we're going to talk about that today and also break down the Washington Commanders draft. I'm going to give it a grade finally. You kind of saw my grades fluctuating out there, but I'm going to give them a solid grade. And then a little bit later on, we're going to have two younger, outstanding guests coming on with me today. I'm going to have Brandy Flores, and Brandy used to cover the Washington Commanders, but now she's out in Vegas doing a great job with the Las Vegas Sports Network. She'll be joining us first, and then a little bit later on, we're going to have Courtland Griffin. Courtland Griffin's making a name for himself. He's one of the best young minds in the NFL as far as covering all the draft prospects. He does this year round. He breaks them down. He puts them in order. And I want to get his take on a couple of the Commanders draft picks. So we'll have him come on and we'll break down that. And we'll also talk about some league stuff as well. So we got an entertaining show coming up for you, my friends. As always, if you want to call us, if you want to comment on this show, it's very easy. All you have to do is call us at 804-327-0888 right here on ESPN Radio 106.1 FM. And also you can hear this show broadcasting on HD radio as well at 103.7 FM. Did I say that right? I just want to make sure I got that right.
You
okay,
did.
There we go. I'm looking at Alan. He's like looking at me like, oh, yeah, it's right. It's right. So speaking of Alan, let's bring in our super producer. What's going on, Big Al?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good. You missed me, didn't you?
No, I didn't miss you, actually. I didn't miss you. I didn't miss the NFL. In fact, I renounced my NFL fandom. Being a fan is the worst experience of my life.
Why do you say that?
Because I'm a Niners fan, and it was the absolute worst draft ever.
Well, I didn't want to go there,
and all I could think about, I'm not going to lie, all I could think about was how I remember me getting into my little monologue on Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. You were like, hey, now, Kyle's a cool dude, man. Kyle's a cool dude. And then I listened to them basically tell everybody that they were smarter than everybody else. And all I could think of was, I'm not going to offend them because Lake said they're cool, but nah, man. It was awful. But hey, no, Commanders look good. You know what? The whole NFC East, I thought, had a solid draft.
Phenomenal draft. Yeah. I think every team in the NFC East helped their cause. Mm-hmm. When I came in, we were talking and, you think of everything that each team did to counter each other. And it seems like that's exactly what they did. It seems to me like they literally made it a point to, Washington goes out, they get Sonny Styles. What do the Eagles do? They trade for Mekhi Lemon. And that was a funky thing right there, No,
that was diabolical.
Yeah, man, it was. And being in Pittsburgh, when it all went down, it was like, oh, my God, they actually did that. And the thing is, Howie Roseman didn't do anything wrong, if you ask me. He did what, good GMs do. Maybe there's a loophole. I don't know. But at the end of the day, he served notice that, look, the Eagles, the whole A.J. Brown thing, we're talking about all that stuff. It doesn't matter. So let's get right into it. I have my first guest calling in right now, and that's Mrs. Brandy Flores. Does an awesome job for the Las Vegas Sports Network. And I want to get her take because I was just with her in Pittsburgh and was with her as well in Indianapolis. She's really doing well, up and coming in this business. So let's bring Brandy on now. What's going on, Brandy?
Hey, Lake. Thanks for that intro. I appreciate that. And it was great seeing you, in this offseason, I guess. It's been wonderful for the Raiders, I must say.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, and obviously talk of the town there is Fernando Mendoza, the number 1 overall pick. It was kind of anticlimactic because you knew he was going to be at home. He wasn't at the draft where we were. My question to you to start this thing, though, is everyone in Vegas excited about this kid, or are they kind of like in a wait and see approach?
Oh, everybody is extremely, extremely excited, Lake, because you got to think about it. The Raiders have not had any resemblance of success in a really, really long time. They've had a rotating door of quarterbacks, and Raiders fans, the front office, they know now that Fernando Mendoza, yes, he is the future, but he's not expected to make immediate changes right away. They know that they're investing stock into this kid, and they've really put a lot of pieces around him before he even got here. But as you know, very anticlimactic, the worst kept secret in the NFL that the Raiders were going to take him first overall. But with what they've done in the offseason, with adding a bunch of different pieces and with the new coaching staff, everybody is excited because they know the future is being built up properly in Las Vegas. And that's something that this franchise hasn't seen in a very, very, very long time.
Yeah. When you think about it, they've had, I don't want to ever call out, my style, Brandy, is not to call out a professional because this is what they do and they're better than most. But let's face it, the Raiders have had some shoddy quarterback play over the past several seasons. And the fact of the matter is now you're going to have a professional, a true pro in Kirk Cousins, who they feel like they can win some football games with this year. So do you think the goal all along here is for Fernando to not hit the field at all in 2026 and wait his time out? Or do you feel like it's just more or less Kirk Cousins holding it down for, maybe a couple weeks before Fernando does get the call to come up this year?
I don't think it's so much as waiting out his year, forcing him to sit a whole year, anything like that. The head coach, Clint Kubiak, has been very vocal when not, quote unquote, speaking specifically about Fernando Mendoza, because he couldn't in all the press conferences that he's had. But what he has specifically said on when it comes to bringing in a rookie quarterback or any rookie in any position, it doesn't really matter if like that one position can't change an entire football team, although quarterback is a little bit different of a position when we talk about it. But he is not, but he's basically said that any rookie that comes in has to earn their spot. They're competing with vets, guys who have been in the league, been in this franchise, been around, and they have to compete. So whether that whoever wins that first spot, the QB1 spot, whether it's Kirk Cousins week 1 or Fernando Mendoza beating him out for it in week 4, that's kind of the route they're taking. They're going to make him earn it, and also not having that pressure, because we have seen time and time again with a lot of rookie quarterbacks and how it's a lot of pressure when they're expected to come in and just make immediate changes. Now, granted, the Raiders, they added, former Ravens offensive lineman in Tyler Linderbaum, and they won that sweepstakes with him to help protect him up front. But there's still a lot of holes, and there's still a lot of things missing when it comes to building up this team. And they know that they're not going to compete for a Super Bowl within the next year. Of course, you and I both covered the Commanders when they drafted rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels, and they went to the NFC title game. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. However, that is definitely not the goal, because you do want that long-term success, especially here in Vegas. They've invested so much time in making sure that each player, not even just Fernando Mendoza as a quarterback, but each player is set up for success. For example, Kirk Cousins, been around the league, a great quarterback. He is the perfect mentor, I think, for Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah.
And Kirk, kind of spilled the beans when he went on Good Morning America as soon as he was signed, saying that they were going to take Fernando Mendoza, and he knows and he understands that his role is the bridge quarterback.
Yeah. And
one thing that Kirk Cousins said when he had his introductory press conference with the Silver and Black was that it doesn't matter, who is, it's whoever is going to be the best on the field for this team. He said, whether that's me, whether that's a rookie quarterback, whether that's, of course, Aiden O'Connell is still on the Raiders, then that's who it's going to be. And their one goal and one thing that the front office and coaching staff expressed to Kirk was they're trying to build something however long it takes. They're not going to rush any sort of process. And I think that is what's really different about this Raiders offseason. This is my first year covering the team, but when I'm talking to the people who have worked in the building, who have been around, who have been, a lot of, even some diehard fans who call into our radio shows, they're like, this feels extremely different. We have, even like all of the legends who came back when Fernando Mendoza was introduced in his press conference, as you mentioned, you and I were still at the draft. but the legendary Raiders quarterback Jim Plunkett was there to welcome him.
Yeah,
Eric Allen, Marcus Allen, all these legends in the buildings there. And I think that symbolism is like, okay, we're getting back to that.
Yeah.
Like the Raiders are trying to get back to that, but they know that what they've been doing the past, decade or so, probably longer, has not worked.
Well,
and so they're taking a completely different approach.
Well, I think, Brandy, the other thing too that helps here is that Fernando Mendoza is a winner. He's coming in there having won a national championship, freshly minted. So, they see that this guy can win, and he can win in impossible situations. Because let's be honest, Indiana is the all-time losingest football program in college football history. And he goes there. Obviously, Kirk Cinetti, the coach, helped a lot too. But he gets there and things change, and they just carried that all the way through. So I think a lot of these Raider greats see that this kid's a winner, and he's a good kid on top of that. So, yeah, the future's bright. So I'm going to ask you this, to kind of put you on the spot here a little bit. Do you feel like the Raiders have done enough as far as free agency and now through the draft and drafting Fernando Mendoza, number one? Do you feel like this is a team that could possibly compete for, maybe a wild card spot, or better yet, they're playing meaningful football in December of this year?
We've talked about this behind the scenes, and especially after a year covering the Commanders, that year that they had, I thought that year, but when they went to the NFC title game, the Commanders, they were going to go 7-10. And it's funny because a lot of things are very reminiscent with this Raiders team, which how that team was drafting a rookie quarterback, quote unquote, not expecting him to start right away. But I think that not just with Fernando Mendoza, but with a lot of the people they added in the offseason, Max Crosby's still on the team as of Tuesday, April 28th, 3 p.m. Pacific time. So anything could happen there still too. But they've added some really great pieces, but it's still a brand new coaching staff. Yeah. It's still going to be a brand new culture that has to be set. And I think that there is something to be said about team unity and coming together. And we don't know what that looks like yet. And so I think that that's a huge aspect on whether or not a team will be successful. Are you going to ride or die for the man next to you? And that's how you persevere and continue to succeed. And I think we haven't seen practices or whatever, of course, when we ask them, how's it going? Chemistry's great. What are they going to say? Right.
Yeah, of course.
But I think that as far as like the talent level that they have on this team, they do unfortunately have a very tough schedule this year. And so I'm going to say, I don't think that they're going to the playoffs this year. Anything can happen. I think that if Fernando Mendoza comes in and he makes an immediate impact, we could be talking a little bit different, but it's going to be a very much uphill battle because Fernando Mendoza has also not taken many snaps under center. Clint Kubiak, his offense and his passes and OC in this league, a lot of his, that's where it starts from. And then just that transition is going to be big for him. But as you mentioned, Fernando Mendoza is a fighter. He was spent a few years at Cal before winning a Heisman and national championship with Indiana. And just in that 1 year between Cal and Indiana, learning another new offense, another new coach, leading the team, I think that he has something special when it comes to grit.
Yeah.
Where he's going to put his body on the line, do whatever he needs to do to be successful. And even when times were tough and the pressure was on him throughout that whole playoff run, he never gave up, whether it was a mistake or whether it was an off read or whatever. He still came back and still found a way to win. That is, you can't really coach that. That's just you either have it or you don't. And so I think dependent, I guess, on how well he adapts in the league. But I also think that it's going to be a little bit longer, I think, than people expect because Tom Brady who's a minority owner of the Raiders, as everybody knows, has been extremely vocal for the past few years, especially since he's retired, that he doesn't believe in rookie quarterbacks starting right away just for the sake of starting right away, just for the sake of,
right.
Trying to turn this around. And so I think that he's going to. But
you know what, Brandy? Everyone doesn't have the same path as Tom Brady. Tom Brady came in as a late, round draft pick, and because of an injury, was thrusted into his situation. And we know the rest is history. We're talking about the GOAT now. But I think with Fernando being the number 1 overall pick, there's a little bit more pressure. Well, not a little bit more, a lot more pressure for him to hit the field earlier than say a Tom Brady would have if Drew Bledsoe wasn't injured back in the day. So, I do think that, I hear what you're saying there, but I do think that that's going to be a little bit of a difference because let's face it, Brandy, if Kirk Cousins goes out there, let's just say he goes out there in the first 3 games of the season and he's throwing interception and he doesn't look, like the old Kirk Cousins that was throwing for 4,000 yard seasons in Washington. The Raiders fan base is going to be calling for Mendoza regardless if he's ready or not.
Right, of course. But I think the biggest pressure for Mendoza is and the front office has emphasized this to him, and he has expressed this. He's not here to win 10 games next year. He's here to win Super Bowls and championships long term.
Very good point.
And so for that, there's not, of course, there's first overall pick, there's always going to be pressure. But also, I will point this out. Kirk, the best season he had in recent years was when he was with the Vikings. At the time, who was he working with on that coaching staff? His new head coach, Courtland Kubiak.
Yep,
I do think that Kirk Cousins, when he comes to coming to the Raiders, it'll be the terminology will be the same. So it'll be because Kirk Cousins has to learn this offense too. He has to learn how to lead this brand new team too. Because Kirk Cousins is expected to, of course, come in and be the QB1. He's probably going to be taking reps with the starters like before Fernando will for sure. For all those reasons I just said. So I do think that Kirk will be able to hold down the fort just a little bit. Obviously, we have no idea. But I do think for that reason, I think that's why they picked a guy like Kirk and not a guy like, who did the Commanders have? When they had, Marcus Mariota? Like, there's a big difference between a guy like Marcus Mariota and Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, because your
huge
role.
Difference. Right. And even how we saw, I think and I said the same thing about Caleb Williams, who was the first overall pick. He struggled his first year, but he was sort of thrust into it. He was definitely set up far better than when the Bears had drafted Justin Fields, of course.
Yeah.
However, he still struggled a lot. And I think for Tom Brady, for minority or Tom Brady, he has his hands in this organization a lot more this year when it comes to the decision making, just by the decisions being made, in my opinion. And last year was probably definitely embarrassing for Tom Brady, considering how poorly the Raiders did, and that was his first year really being super involved with the organization.
Yeah.
And so I think they're going to take a little bit more precautions because they do want to make sure that this kid that they picked, and Fernando Mendoza, is going to be that guy.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to learn a lot from him. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I will say that. Because also, they drafted a lot of defensive players too. So I think, with the pieces they added in the off season, I'm really, really excited to see what the defense looks like, especially. I think that the Raiders offensive line still needs a little bit more work, which is probably another reason why they're probably not going to have Fernando out there immediately, in my opinion, because they got to protect him at all costs.
You don't want to get him killed at all. Not a little bit.
But yeah, no, it's super exciting. I think, could this team be a playoff team? I mean, I hope so. That would be awesome for this organization and the uplifting of, Raider Nation. However, I am definitely on the side of caution where it's like, they want long-term success. It has been far too long since they have had any relevancy in the playoffs. So I think that, long-term success is definitely be more important. But yeah, hopefully he can be on the field as soon as possible because we all want to see him.
Yeah, I mean, this is good stuff. And folks right now talking with Brandy Flores, does a great job for Las Vegas Sports Network out there in Vegas. And she used to cover the Commanders with me over here in DC, and I've been running into her everywhere. She's been doing her thing, and I'm really proud of you, by the way. I wanted to tell you that, you're really making a name for yourself and doing a great job. And I'm going to have you come back on here throughout the season. We'll get you back on here and we'll talk about Mendoza. We'll talk about the Raiders. We'll talk about what you're doing, because there's a lot of exciting things going on out there in Vegas. You got a basketball team coming, you got a baseball team. So Vegas is now becoming like, I don't want to say the mini LA because that's disrespectful to Vegas and LA at the same time, but they're getting ready to start putting some heat on LA for those West Coast folks. They have another alternative as far as professional teams. And you also have another great reporter that you can listen to as well. So Brandy, before I let you wrap up, how can our listeners follow you on all this great stuff that you're doing out there?
Well, first of all, Lake, thank you so much. I appreciate those very, very kind words. I'm so glad we can still connect, after leaving from the East Coast. But as a West Coast girl, yes, it is exciting that all the things that we have in Vegas. You could definitely follow me. On all social media, I am _Brandy with a Y, Flores, _Brandy Flores. And then you can follow the Las Vegas Sports Network. We cover the Aces, we are going to cover the Athletics once they get here. The NBA team, whenever they decide if they want to build a new stadium for them or if they're just going to try to crash in at T-Mobile. We got the Vegas Golden Knights. They're in the playoffs right now. They can clinch tomorrow. And go on to the next round. So it's going to be Vegas sports is definitely coming up. And then of course it's Cinco de Mayo weekend this weekend. So we got a fight going on.
Exactly.
And I love boxing.
Of course, a good one too. A real good one. So listen, my friend, I appreciate you taking time. It's a lot earlier out there, but I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on. And I'm going to get you on real soon again. Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Like, thanks. Anytime.
All right. Take care now. Folks, Brandy Flores, once again, does a great job out there. And, like I said, she's from out there. So she wanted to get back out there, and now she's back out there. And now all these pro teams are coming to Vegas. So that's a good look. So, look, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I got another young gun coming up here on the show today. Mr. Courtland Griffin does a great job breaking down all NFL draft analysis stuff. This is the guy that you want to hear when we come back on. We're going to talk about some of these Washington Commanders draft picks, and then also a couple of other surprise picks that happened in Pittsburgh while I was there. So we'll take a break and we'll be back right here. You're listening to the Lake Lewis Jr. Show.
This is
ESPN Radio Richmond, 106.1 FM. And then also, if you're listening to us on HD radio as well, appreciate you. That's 103.7. So FM. Okay. So Brandy Flores did a great job, the last segment. She's doing a great job out there in Vegas. And I wanted to get her take on Fernando Mendoza and the Raiders, because that was the number one overall pick in the draft. But now I'm going to bring in one of my young pups, man. This is a guy I consider like a little brother. He's doing a phenomenal job. One of the next up and coming fast risers in our profession, NFL draft analyst, Mr. Courtland Griffin. What's going on, Court? What's going on, brother?
Not much, Lake. How's it going, man?
I'm good, man. I couldn't wait to get you on here because this was your time of year. It was a culmination of all the hard work that you put in out throughout the year, breaking down every player that we see at the combine, guys that didn't even come to the combine. And here you are, you see them, walking across that stage in Pittsburgh. And I wanted to get your take on a couple of these Commanders guys. Obviously, Sonny Styles was their top pick. And, this area is in a frenzy, man. They feel like Washington got one of those ones. What's your assessment of Mr. Styles coming from Ohio State to Washington?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about when you talk about a player like him, like you see the special athleticism, you see, all the flashy, highlight plays, but he's also very technically sound. And yeah, honestly, I know people have compared him to Fred Warner, but I think he's a little more like of a juiced up Bobby Wagner, which I think would excite Washington Commanders fans.
Yeah. That Courtland, listen, man, I said this the other day. He is a younger, bigger version of Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner's a first ballot Hall of Famer. We know that when he hangs him up. So if Sonny Styles can have anything close to Bobby Wagner's career, then Washington got a steal here. But I just think that you're right. I think that they're very similar, a lot more. I would say he's more athletic than Fred Warner, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah. He's definitely more of a world-class athlete than Bobby, of course, laterally, long speed-wise. Like you said, he's bigger, which makes that even more impressive. So you can do a lot of things with him. So, it's going to be exciting to see, him next to Frankie Louvu and behind that young defensive front.
Now, when you look at some of the other picks, the guy that's really intriguing to a lot of fans, and even to us in the media, it's Antonio Williams. This was a receiver at Clemson that, didn't have a whole lot around him and yet still was putting up some really phenomenal numbers. And someone asked me the other day, who do I compare him to? Who's his comp to me? He kind of reminds me a little bit of Santana Moss. Am I off by saying that?
Yes and no. And I'm gonna tell you, I think his comp is if you pour water, right, and if the cup is Crystal Lave and you just kind of diluted that just a little bit, right? Okay. He's not as fast He's not, in a straight line, he's not as fast, but he's elusive. He's a very good route runner, gets in and out of his breaks with a lot of speed, sinks his hips. They used him at Clemson in a myriad of ways, out of the backfield, flanker, X, down the field, short to intermediate screen game. So, he can make a lot of things happen, and he's also, very valuable in the return game, which, gives him that added value. So, I mean, if you want to say ceiling, right, that he's Santana, which is a people know, you guys know,
of course,
shout out to Santana Moss. That's a heavy crown to bear,
right?
And a lot of shoes to fill. But if we're saying that its floor is just a really reliable wide receiver to Terry McLaurin, I think you got a steal there.
Yeah. So who would you say his comp is for who's currently in the league?
Yeah, Antonio, like I said, I think he's a watered down Chris Olave. I think that is who he is, body style wise, play style wise. I think that's what he is, right? When I watched him at Clemson a couple of years ago, I was like, this kid has the possibility to be a first round draft pick. He could be one of the top, 3 or 4 receivers in that class. And of course, he dealt with some injuries, and Clemson had a down year, so it kind of dropped his draft stock a little bit, but you saw the flashes of what he could be. You see the tough catches, you see the body contortion, you see the ability to get open. And I'm very excited to see him in Washington because he gets to learn from Terry McLaurin, who came in, right? I mean, though he was can you hear me?
Yeah. No, I was going to say it was very similar. When Terry came in, he was coming in kind of, no one expected Terry to be who he is now. He's self-made, so you give him all the credit. So I see exactly where you're going with that. That's a great analogy right there.
Yeah, so I think if he can stay healthy, that and Terry takes him under his wing, which, from what I've understood, is that Terry's very open to teaching the younger guys and being that team captain, and such a, consummate pro. You teach that kid, and if he follows in the ways of Terry McLaurin, like I said, you got at least a solid number 2 in his early years and a guy that can develop into a steady starter for years to come.
Now, when you look at some of the other picks, obviously, I have to bring this up. And if my producer, Alan, thought I was going to go a show without shouting out my school, he was sadly mistaken because Washington took Kaytron Allen in the 6th round. Is Kaytron Allen a guy that you would expect to make this roster, or is he maybe a guy that you have to develop just a little bit? Because Washington's running back room as of today, before Kaytron got there, obviously it was Bill Krosky, Merritt, Rashad White, Jerome Ford, and Jeremy McNichols. So does Kaytron Allen have a legit chance to supplant someone, because they're not keeping 5 running backs on the roster?
I think so, and I think he comes in as your immediate third guy. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the guys on that roster, when you look at, Bill, you look at Rashad, they're very similar in kind of what they do. Rashad being a third down back, very smooth route runner and, has really good hands out of the backfield. Bill is very similar to that, but he also runs the ball very well, very tough runner. Right, which has gotten him that starting role there. But I think they're missing that power, guy, that short yardage, grind out the tough yards.
Yeah,
like that bell cow guy. And I think Kaytron comes in and fills that role. And one of the things that you don't want to get caught in again, right, and you learn from your mistakes if you're the Washington Commanders, is you don't want to be in another situation where you go and you have to play a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, right, in an NFC Championship game, and you can't grind out those tough yards in inclement weather. You can't get those 3rd and 2s or those 4th and 1s, when you need them. And that's where Kaytron Allen comes in. And he's a really good back in his own right, 1,300 plus yards last year, carried a lot of the load with Nick Singleton, who was also drafted, right? And he kind of carried the load of that Penn State backfield last season. So, like I said, I think he makes the roster. I think he comes in as the 3rd best running back on that roster today. And I think he could end up supplanting Rashad White as the true number 2 to Bill Krosky's Merritt's number 1.
All right, hey man, that's one. Okay, I'm gonna make sure Alan. We make sure we clip this because my guy right here knows his stuff. But that's a big one right there, and I'm gonna take that all day. I will sign off on that. I'll co-sign on that. So let's talk about a team that you cover. You cover the league, of course, but you also cover specifically daily the Tennessee Titans. And Tennessee Titans, to me, started the draft this year because they had the surprise pick of all surprises. Some people might say Jeremiah Love going 3 to Arizona. I wasn't really surprised by that because I've said all along that Jeremiah Love was the best player in the draft, period. But at number 4, Tennessee took Carnell Tate. And you and I had talked, and, there was maybe a little bit of chatter that Tennessee may have made a call to Dallas about, George Pickens or something like that before he took that franchise tag. So clearly Tennessee was looking for a receiver. Were you surprised, though, that it was Carnell Tate?
Yes. And the reason I was surprised, and the reason I was surprised is because all the way from the combine all the way up until maybe I would say 2 days prior to the draft, commencing, it was Jeremiah Love, right? Yeah. It was the Titans are going to take Jeremiah Love. And if you remember, like when we were sitting in Indianapolis, we're sitting in Lucas Oil Stadium, we see him going through the drills, we talk to him, you see the kid, you see the swag, you see the confidence, and we're like, that's a Tennessee running back. He's got Tennessee running back written all over him.
Sure did.
And you didn't hear any buzz about Tennessee with Jeremiah until after that.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a surprise that Carnell Tate was the pick there because I thought for sure they would go defense if, Jeremiah Love wasn't there and he, eventually went to Arizona. So definitely a surprise, but I think it's a healthy surprise. Seeing that you have a young quarterback in Cam Ward that needs a number one target, that needs a reliable set of hands. I think he gets that wide receiver that he can grow with in Carnell.
So do you think it was, and I don't want to use the word panic move because obviously that's disrespectful to Carnell Tate, who's a phenomenal talent without question. But do you feel like had Jeremiah Love been sitting there at 4, Tennessee would have taken Tate or Love? You're pretty sure they would have taken Jeremiah Love?
I honestly believe it would have been Jeremiah Love. Yeah. I think, and I know that Robert Saleh says it. Yeah.
I mean, look, I know you got to go in the building and you don't want to get in trouble. Yeah, so let me say it for you as an insider. Yeah, they were going to take him.
and Robert Saleh did say, once, and I'm assuming this is once Jeremiah Love came off the board, that Carnell Tate was the best guy, the guy that they wanted. And so I think they did their due diligence. Mike Borgonzi is really good he has a scouting background, so he's really, really good at what he does. And so understanding Dayball is in that room now. He's in that war room, and he's talking, right, to Borgonzi, and he's telling him what he's had because he's worked with a Stephon Diggs. He's worked with a Malik Neighbors, and he's done so much with young quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Jackson Dart, and he sees what he sees in Cam. And I think he looked at that and said, we need to get that kid Carnell Tate. Why? He's the most polished of the 3 wide receivers. Does that mean he's the best? No, but is he the most polished? Is he the most refined? Yes, he runs very clean routes. He's hand positioning, how he sets his routes up. He keeps his verticality. He respins well. And so, I think they would have went Jeremiah Love, but if he was sitting there and you had to pick between the two, but I think they made the right move, and I think that was the guy that they were going to target as their second option the whole way.
So let me ask you, and right now folks talking with Courtland Griffin does an awesome job, NFL draft analyst, breaking down all these players year round. And, when you look at Tennessee and you look at their wide receiver core, okay, Wan'Dale Robinson comes in, ironically, from the Giants, and Dayball coached him. So obviously he knows what he gets in that player. And then you have Calvin Ridley, a player that maybe a couple years back, would have been your number one. So my question now is Carnell Tate your day one opening day number one receiver? Or is that something he has to work into role-wise?
So I'm going to parrot Mike Borgonzi here. Mm-hmm. Every guy has to earn his keep no matter where they're drafted.
Yeah.
And that to me makes a lot of sense.
Well, that's cliche talk.
The injury.
That's cliche talk. Come on, Courtland. Everybody says that.
But it is like, but I'm gonna tell you why to me it makes sense. The last time we saw Calvin Ridley, it didn't look great, right?
Yeah.
But because he broke his, he had the ankle injury. Then of course he comes back off the ankle injury and he unfortunately breaks his leg, on the first play of the game. Mm-hmm. Devastating injury. Right. But before that, I mean, Calvin with Will Levis had 1,000 yards and we hadn't really got to see him, because last year would have been his first year with Cam. We really didn't get to see them, really build that relationship,
right?
Because of the injury issues. So I think, and with Dayball having a relationship with Calvin stemming from their days at Bama, I think Calvin is still on paper, as of right now, the number one wide receiver. Now, after preseason, after mini camp, training camp, a couple of weeks go by, you might see Carnell start to take that load. But I think this is the best situation for Carnell, that he doesn't have to come in and immediately be the number one guy, because you have that veteran over across the field from you that's going to, take some of that load off of you and kind of allow you to baby step as you learn the speed of the game and you get your, for lack of better terms, wide receiver one legs up under you.
Okay. All right. So look, real quick, before we wrap up, I'm going to put you on the spot here real quick. 2 players from this year's draft that you think will be battling it out for Rookie of the Year. 2 players. It could be either side of the ball.
Okay. I'm gonna call that, and I'm gonna raise you. I'll give you 2 defensive and 2 offensive.
Okay. Okay.
One defensive guy, I think is going to be Mansour Delane.
Mm-hmm. The corner.
And Caleb Downs.
Oh, yeah, Dallas.
I honestly believe that those 2 guys. I believe those 2 guys are going to duke it out for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Caleb, of course, is going to a very, very, already kind of foundation built team in Dallas. They already have a lot of guys with Devin Nezaraku and those guys and Kenny Clark and those guys down there. And so he gets to kind of come in and play his game. He doesn't have to come in and overcompensate, almost like an Antoine Winfield when he, joined Tampa Bay. He got to come in and immediately just kind of be him.
Yep.
And so he didn't have to overcompensate for anything. He didn't have to try to, stretch himself thin. Just kind of come in and be the kid that we drafted, the talent, the otherworldly talent that we saw you with. With Mansour, on the flip side of that, Steve Spagnuolo, we knows how to get the best out of his secondary guys. He squeezed juice out of a beat more than one time, and now you're getting one of the true blue chip corners to come in. He can play outside, he can play inside. We know he can blanket wide receivers. We know he's strong enough to go up against your bigger guys and fleet-footed enough to go against your smaller guys, so and faster guys. So I think those 2 guys are going to be at the top of that list for Defensive Rookie of the Year as far as preseason goes.
Okay.
Offensively, I think you'll be hard-pressed not to have Fernando Mendoza in that conversation. The kid's going to go, he's going to have some weapons over there. Clint Kubiak, we know, we just saw what he did in Seattle. We've seen what he's done when he's had some okay talent. I think he's getting a really good talent, a guy with a keen eye and the smarts for the game with the Raiders. And I think he's going to have even if he doesn't start the entire year, I think even if he takes over, let's say midseason, he has a Tyler Shough kind of rise. Where you start to see that team rally around him. And the second guy is a guy we just talked about. I think he can be Carnell Tate. Like you said, he can come in and immediately shift this offense, into something different with Cam Ward, right, and those guys, and Tony Pollard and those guys throwing the ball, and how he can throw the ball. And Carnell's a really good receiver. They're going to use him in a lot of different ways. They're going to move him around. They're going to set him up. And we know Brian Daboll knows how to get young guys involved. He did it with Malik Neighbors. He can do it with Carnell Tate, who I think is equally as talented. So I think you're going to see offensively, you'll see Fernando Mendoza and Carnell Tate at the top of the list. And I think defensively, you're going to see Mansour Delane and Caleb Downs at the top of the list.
All right. Well, good stuff. And folks, I got to tell you, everyone says as an insider, where do you really have some scoops? Where do you get some stuff from? Some of the stuff I get is from this guy on the other line right now. And this is what I said. He's the one that told me about Chig Okonkwo, and said if Washington, you basically said he's going there, and that if he does end up there, wait till you see what he can do. So he said he's going to be Jaden's best friend. This is where I got that from, folks. So it's all real stuff here. So my little bro, I appreciate you coming on. We're going to get you back on here all the time. You're my resident guy here on ESPN Radio. So I got to get you on all the time. So appreciate you coming on. All right.
No problem, man. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Take care. Tell the beautiful wife I said hi too, by the way. Okay. All right, folks.
I will. I will, buddy.
All right, folks. Look, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we've got a lot more to go over. We're going to give some grades out for the Washington Commanders draft class, and Alan's going to help me with that, whether he likes it or not. He's going to help me with that. He's shaking his head now. So hang tight. You're listening to the Lake Lewis Jr. Show. That's very astute of you.
Because it can't be any lower than a C for the Commanders. I don't care how biased
it's
you
not
are.
even. Yeah. It's no. I mean, a C. Really?
Yeah. I'm just being sarcastic. Like it was great.
I know. No.
They don't have a DEF version of this for my team. So.
Well, I'm gonna just come out and say this right now, folks. Here on the Lake Lewis Jr. Show, we're getting ready to give the Washington Commanders a letter grade for their draft. And, I know it's a couple of days later and I've had a chance to really dissect it. Has it changed from Pittsburgh when I dipped my stand up there? No, it hasn't changed. Actually, no, it's not true. It did change. It actually went up a half a grade, if you can call it that, because, when I was growing up, my parents used to say, you get a minus, that's not good. Okay. Minus means you were closer to the worst grade than you were to the other grade, the better grade. They used to always say that. I could never win with that. Yeah. So I'm going to say this. I thought Washington had an outstanding draft under the circumstances. When you think about only having 6 picks and basically 4 of them are after the 3rd round, that's tough sledding. You've got to know what you're doing. And yet here we are. Adam Peters, being Adam Peters, was cooking. He brought the chef hat out, and he's got some phenomenal picks. And he didn't get guys that, come on, Alan, let's just say it. Let's call it like it is. Before Adam Peters came to town, before Josh Harris, Dan Quinn and company, before this new regime came into town, we saw some absolutely atrocious draft picks. And I'm not going to say under who, because it was several people. But it was really bad draft picks. They could never get a 2nd round pick correct. Their 1st round picks aren't even on the roster. Some of them aren't even in the league now.
Yeah, I was going to say the 1st round picks was god awful. That's usually what people remember. But you guys, I think by the metrics were if not the best, but one of the best when it came to draft and the projected, I guess, grade of what you were getting. Mm-hmm. So like you guys drafted well above what was expected at those particular spots. So like, and I think Antonio Williams had he's considered a steal.
Yeah.
At pick number 71.
He's a steal.
Yeah. Sonny Styles falling down to you at 7. I think some people would consider that a steal, but I mean, you were in a win-win situation. It was Sonny, it was Caleb. It was honestly, like we had talked about, in that spot.
Well, it wasn't Mansour.
It wasn't Mansour, which I did find a little comical because I still kind of believe that he was high in Washington's.
He was number 3 on their draft.
Yeah, board. That's what I figured.
But I want fans to understand this, and I'm not making this stuff up now. I mean, this is knowing folks. Sonny Styles was sitting there at 7, and Delane would have been there at 7. I don't know why Kansas City felt the need to have to trade over them
because I think they thought you guys might have.
There's no way.
They don't know that though. But here's the thing: if you're Kansas City, you rather be Kansas City than be the Steelers.
Oh no, exactly. You go and get what you need. You know, as opposed to watch somebody basically take food out of your mouth in your hometown.
You on the phone with them.
It's like they slapped Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. And that's just
that is actually funny.
And you know what? When you think about it, it's not. Howie Roseman didn't do anything wrong.
No, he just was smart.
He worked the system. I mean,
the Cowboys did the same thing. Like, they could have waited one spot if they wanted to, 100%. But Caleb Downs falling down that far, no pun intended, but falling to 11
that was good.
Was already a miracle.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
It was already a miracle in and of itself. So just trade up one spot and take him. Like, why would you risk waiting when this is your guy? If Mekhi Lemon's your guy, what's one spot? The cost of that in this particular draft was not that high.
Well, when you're Kansas City, you also have to realize that they lost both their corners to the Rams. So they needed to get someone in there, and they got the best corner in this draft, number one guy. I will say this, not to stray too far here, but you had mentioned a little bit earlier as far as the NFC East as a whole. Mm-hmm. The NFC East as a whole got an A+. As far as their draft collectively. It was an A+. So where does that put Washington, you may be asking right now? I gave Washington the day of the draft after I did my hit. I gave them an A-. But after going back through it and looking at it and realizing what they've done, I give them a solid A. I think Washington hit this thing, hit it hard, man. I mean, they took the bull by the horns, and what they walk away with is they get a bruising running back in Kaytron Allen. You get a phenomenal slot guy that, and I keep saying this, people keep saying, well, they still needed another big receiver or a receiver on the outside. And you know why they don't have to worry about that? It's because, as I've been saying, for how long now have I been saying Ayuk's coming to Washington?
Yeah, you've been saying it for a while.
Okay, so that's going to be your guy now on the outside with Terry. And then you've got this young pup and Antonio Williams underneath. I'm calling it. I've been saying it for a long time. I'm not trying to create something. I'm just telling you what I know. I think it's happening. I know it's happening. All right. Then you get yourself your stud middle linebacker, your green dot guy who's an absolute monster. You saw my interview with him at the draft. Mm-hmm. Man, I was looking up, and I'm over 6 feet, man. This dude was towering over me. And I'm like, most of the time, Mike linebackers don't look that big.
Well, yeah, he's got that Urlacher thing where he came from safety to linebacker, middle linebacker. I would imagine he's going to put on some mass because he is a lean linebacker right now. But again, Urlacher came in like that. Fred Warner came in a little lean. I don't like the Warner comp. I think that's a little disrespectful to Fred. to Fred, yeah.
To Fred.
But
I knew you were going to say that as a Niners guy. Come on.
I do like the Bobby Wagner comp.
That's who I see, man. And that's why I say this is perfect. You know what would be even better, though? Is if somehow Bobby and the team can work out whatever.
Yeah, no, seriously. If he could mentor Sonny.
Yes.
That would be phenomenal because the only deficiency Sonny's coming in with right now is that he doesn't have the experience. The NFL is a different animal.
Yeah.
And so he would need to learn that. And I'm sure he's a sponge. He seems like a great kid. He really does. And he played in a system and with a coach who was very demanding and probably prepped him somewhat with NFL verbiage and what to expect.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. That is so important that you just said that he, for the last 2 years at Ohio State, has been learning a pro-style defense, which is going to make him that much, faster as far as his learning curve.
Yeah, and again, if Patricia and Saban vouch for you, I will stand on it. These type of coaches. If my guy Signetti gets a pulse and opens up a little bit, if he vouches for you, if you can get the praise from those guys, Kirby Smart. If you can get the praise from those guys, Dabo Sweeney, then I gotta give you a look at least
because they don't praise often.
Yeah, maybe not so much Dabo, but some of these kind of grittier coaches, Mario Cristobal. Mario Cristobal is a tough dude, man. If you can get his praise and admiration, Ruben Bain, I'm gonna give you a look.
And Jason Taylor.
Yeah, and Jason Taylor. Yeah, I'm gonna give you a look.
Man, let me tell you how much love was being shown in Pittsburgh. So. I got there. When did I get there? I got there super early Wednesday morning. I think my plane touched down in Pittsburgh at like 8:45. I left out of Richmond at 5. Had to transfer to Dulles, blah, blah, blah. Well, there was an event that was, in the morning on Wednesday, and I got there, I literally showed up with my bags and everything. And all the top prospects were there, had a chance to talk to each one of them individually. And I was really impressed with all of these guys. And they all kept talking about how their coaches were really close with them. Like their coaches were like father figures and big brothers to them, as opposed to just being coaches. And it wasn't lip service, because the next day when I showed up, on Thursday for the draft, I was walking in to security, and the security guard jumped out and told me I had to come around the side. I guess normal media, I don't know how to say that, but some other media had to go another way, and they had me come around the side. And I walk around the side with Jason Taylor and Tiki Barber. And each one of us had a golf cart waiting for us to ride us around the stadium. It was awesome. It was pretty cool.
Tiki, a Virginia guy.
Right. But Jason, and I'm like, Jason's here. And he had a little entourage, and he said he's here for Ruben. And that was just like everything the kid had said. They didn't lie. It was legit. He had a entourage that was there for him, all professionals, all Miami guys that were there to support him with his pick. It just says a lot about all these kids' characters. That's the other thing. I think all of these guys we've been hyping up and talking about on the field over the last week, we know that they're not just great football players. They're good kids. They're good humans. So a lot of these teams won in a lot of regards. So speaking of winning, we won today because we had two great guests, Brandy Flores from Las Vegas Sports Network and Courtland Griffin, also NFL draft analyst. Got a chance to be back in the building with my good friend and my super producer, Alan. So appreciate you guys for checking out the show. We'll be back on Thursday, same time, same place. Have a good one.